Those of us who are affirming this gospel can affirm it with utter confidence. These men that are coming down into the regions of Galatia and are trying to get the Galatians to desert the gospel they previously professed, desert the God who called them by his grace. The gospel that they're proclaiming, they do so in opposition to Paul's apostolic authority, which is not of human origin, nor is it something that was mediated to Paul. Paul's apostolic authority comes immediately from Christ. The Christ who descended upon Sinai, causing the mountain to tremble, causing the Israelites to cry out in fear, Moses, don't let God speak to us directly anymore. You speak to God, and then you come speak to us. Okay? This is the Christ whose authority authorized Paul to be an apostle, and it's this authority that undergirds the gospel proclamation that Paul set out into the world. It's the Christ who appeared to Ezekiel in all of his awesome majesty. It's the Christ spoken of in Daniel 7. When people oppose the gospel, this is the one they're opposing. And that's why it's not just that there's implications for those who are promulgating a different gospel, namely that they're opposing this one, which is a futile errand. But it also means that those of us who are affirming this gospel can affirm it with utter confidence. The reason that I don't have the slightest bit of fear of all the hordes of Rome and all the hordes of the East and all the scurrilous, slanderous things that those guys are saying. Go look at their channels. I don't have any problem telling you go look at their channels. Go listen to them as they snarl at me, literally, right? As they gnash their teeth at me, as they twist and distort things I say, seeking to undermine any credibility I might have in speaking with people. The reason that I can look all of that in the face and say it means nothing to me is because it is this Christ who delivered this gospel through his apostle Paul. In Romans 3, Paul said, let God be true, even if it makes every man a liar. This is the confidence the Christian can have by virtue of knowing from Scripture that this is the gospel of Christ. Even if it were the case that I couldn't prove that anybody prior to Luther taught this, do you think it's going to budge me an inch? This is the sort of thing that people who don't care about the authority of Christ, but are rather looking to men, care about. I don't care. Think about this. These same people pretend that the early church fathers are their forebears in the faith. They are their models. Okay, well, let me give you a model of the faith. Saint Athanasius. Many people think that at the Council of Nicaea and in the aftermath, that the Arian controversy was settled. While it was formally settled by an ecumenical council, the fact is that Arianism became more dominant because the Arians managed to get the ear of the emperor. The Arians managed to ingratiate themselves to the emperor, and they used the arm of the state to persecute those who advocated the orthodox teaching delivered at Nicaea on the basis of Scripture. Athanasius was so outgunned in terms of political power and so forth that he was driven from his bishopric into exile 5 different times. And eventually, people began saying to Athanasius, Athanasius, just give up. The world is against you, Athanasius, or contra mundum Athanasius. The world is against you, Athanasius. Do you know what Athanasius' retort was, in effect? No, it's not contra mundum Athanasius. It's Athanasius contra mundum. That is, it's not the world against Athanasius. it's Athanasius against the world. What Athanasius was saying was, it doesn't matter how many people are speaking contrary to the truth of God, I will oppose one and all in the name of the apostolically revealed truth that Christ is God incarnate. And by the same token, in the same vein, I will oppose one and all who proclaim a different gospel, no matter how many supposed church fathers they think they can enumerate to bolster up their tottering gospel. These men worship idols, they have a false gospel, and it's a gospel that can't even save them, which is all the more astounding. Why put your hope in a gospel that can't help guilt-ridden sinners? Your gospel can't help me. Why do you think it's going to be the least bit attractive? Rome's gospel has no hope for somebody like me. And I mean that not only in light of what I used to be prior to Christ back in 1993, but even today. Even my best thought today is impure in the sight of a God who is himself alone pure. If God were to mark iniquity, the psalmist said, who could stand? It's rhetorical. Okay, Roman Catholics don't start saying, well, I could, Mary could. No, that's not the point of the psalmist. If God were to mark iniquity, who could stand? The answer assumed is no one. The whole world stands guilty before God and without any hope except for his mercy, and his mercy alone, received by faith alone. It astounds me that, we're following church fathers. Well, follow this. A church father who will take his stand on the truth of Scripture, even if the babble of voices, the cacophony of voices all around him is all saying something contrary to the truth of God revealed in Scripture. That's the way the Christian is supposed to approach these matters. And why? Because that's what Paul taught. That's what Paul is saying in Galatians 1. My gospel does not rest on human authority. My gospel was not from men, nor is it through man. I got this directly from Jesus Christ.